Here on the Creative Thinker Podcast, we discuss all theories, philosophy, and thought behind the creative process. And we hope that you find some inspiration along the way.
Hello and welcome to the Creative Thinker Podcast. Today we're doing something just a little bit different. We're going to be talking about some inspirational art in our lives, and we're going to be sharing that with you. But in the process of doing that, we're going to be trying to be good art critics and good connoisseurs of art and making sure that we look for things that we like and maybe even do a little bit of dissection to see what applies to us and what we can use in our own art. One of these days we might do a critique session of talking about other people's art and writing. If you guys feel like submitting, go ahead and do that. Anyway, welcome to the Creative Thinker Podcast. My name is Henry Moon and I'm joined by
Michael Vasquez.
Hello. It is good to be back.
Yes, it is.
We're just 3 months away from a full year, 2.5.
Oh, dang.
Away from a full year of the Creative Thinker Podcast every Monday. So thank you all for making that a reality and for the support and for the enthusiasm and for hanging out with us. Mm-hmm. So without further ado, Michael, what you got?
All right, so
inspiration.
And again, part of what we want to do right here is share some inspiration and then see what comes to our heads and kind of create a little bit of either a story, headcanon, how we can incorporate this into the world building that we're doing currently. And hopefully it inspires you to do just a little bit of that as well in your own story, or just create some type of idea is always the goal. But hopefully this inspires you for something. I'm not sure if we'll do an inspiration part of this episode because it's all inspiration today, baby.
Heyo, we're bringing it. We're bringing that good today.
Yeah.
Unlike every other day. Wait a second.
What? Recently I went to a trip to Ireland with my wife and a couple of our friends. And one of the things that stuck out to me was a book called, I just hit the mic, Mythical Irish Beasts.
And where to find them.
I'm
just kidding. I gotta stop with that joke. That was old months ago.
And so it's been a really, really fun book to read through. But one of the things that stuck out to me the most was, and I'm going to butcher some Irish names. So apologies. I'm doing my best.
Ireland is not one of our most listened to countries, so we're good. Just butcher away. Just kidding, Ireland. Sorry about that.
So one of the stories that really stuck out to me, and it does have a picture. Do you want me to show the picture on here, or are we just going to do it on the gram later?
I'm going to do it on the gram later. I'm going to throw it up on the video in post. In theory, right here in this middle section where my hand is, there's a beautiful black, red, a little bit of tan and white picture of wolves dancing has appeared.
Yes. And so the title of this little mythology is called Eirtac and his 3 werewolf daughters, from the Mythical Irish Beast. So what I'm going to do here is just a little 2-paragraph excerpt. And this sparked a lot of creativity for me.
Did you already read the author?
The author is written and illustrated by Mark Joyce.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Wherever you are in the world, probably
for doing
Ireland.
all the research, or whoever did all the research, because it has footnotes for where the stories came from, or some little extras at the very bottom of the page. And this is just kind of a summary of the myth here. So
that's a beautiful illustration.
It is.
I really, really enjoy it. I like tribal art, and that is just like, it hits all the right points. There's only 3 colors, and it's like, I love it. Yeah. I love it. It's so chonky and like cave drawing-y. It's good. It's good.
It is.
Go on. Sorry, I'll stop interrupting.
The story of Eirtac and his 3 werewolf daughters. Again, about 2 paragraphs, so bear with me. I'm going to butcher some words. In Irish folklore, Eirtac was a creature from the other world, the last of an oppressive company. He lived with his 3 beautiful daughters in a cave. Today, we call it Rathcrogan Complex in somewhere Roscommon, which presumably, the important part, had an opening into the other world. At will or by their father's biddings, the daughters could shapeshift into vicious werewolves. Every year they came and destroyed whatever rams and sheep were owned by Cathal, who was a nephew of Fiona Mikumel. Katul pleaded with the bard to kill them. Kos the bard said to them, "If you really are human, it would be better for you to listen to the music in human shape rather than as wolves." They listened to him and took off their dark, long cloaks that they had been wearing. They did this easily because of their love for Cass's music. While they were listening to Cass, Kylite sent his poisonous spear, which went through, in quotes, through the nipple of the breast of the woman furthest away, having already gone through the other two women, so that all three were strung together on the spear. End quote. Oh no, Cascorch went over to them and cut off their heads. End quote. And this valley has been known as the Valley of the Wolf Shapes ever since.
Dude.
End of story.
Aggressive.
It is
Straight for the nipple.
Yeah, it went straight through 6 nipples right there.
That's that good folklore.
Yeah. A couple things stood out to me in this story. I'll let you figure out which ones.
Oh man. All right.
Okay. So that was my thing of inspiration. What do you get from this?
Well, first of all, I mean, just the picture is a very like puppeteery, werewolfy, like old school. I don't know. It feels like it has a hand-me-down, generation after generation story vibe to it, and I think the illustration here is right on the money. So, Mr. Joyce, was it?
Yes, Mr. Mike Joyce.
Mr. Mark McAtee? Mark. Mr. Joyce. Well done on the illustration.
Yes.
Really liked it. But I think for the story, what's helping me with my creation is I'm working on a pirate story, and I'm just trying to get 4 or 5 episodes. It's really 5, but I'm trying to give myself a way out for the 5th one because I'm on a hang up in the 4th one, but I feel like this answers the question I have, which is most TV shows. So I'm rewatching Justified, and this is sort of gelling with that idea, is the big bad has like 3 or 4 children because each one that gets knocked off ends up being, like they're the mini boss. You fight them, your characters come up against them first, and when they defeat them, it more angers the big bad, and so we go, right? And I was stuck in the 4th episode because I didn't have anyone to knock down other than the big bad. I was like, I'm 4 episodes in. This is a problem.
Yeah.
And if I give them a child to then get knocked over, then they're fine for that whole season. It's pretty much easy street, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's a good thing that helps me for my art at the moment. But at the same time, I think it's interesting that we have this power in threes, so to speak, in all these stories. And I think it's interesting how we take normal, everyday villains and turn them into these big mythological stories. Like, okay, so there was probably 3 wolves that were terrorizing people's sheep in the area.
Yeah.
And now there is a nipple with a spear in it. But
6 nipples.
6 nipples with spears in them. And sorry. Anyway, so it's like we build up this whole story about how there's a gateway to another world, and like these beasts are emerging because how could they not? They're evil, and they're destroying our livelihood and our way of life. And I think it's just amazing to see how creativity has gone through the ages and how we've built these sort of campfire stories into these long 100-year-long, mythologies for certain areas of the world. And I think like every little area, every family has their own. I think that's such a cool thing. And not only has Mr. Joyce completely and wonderfully recreated that visually for us, this little story is a good reminder of that. So I enjoy that. What about you? What do you get out of this piece?
What I get out of this is like the usefulness of bards. And it's very interesting how we feel like music plays a big part in my life and plays a big part in many people's lives, and how we enjoy music so much that sometimes, the wolves they took off their wolf form so that they could listen to the music in human form, because supposedly it's better, or he just asked for it, that it was better for them to listen in human form. And so it's just interesting, like how far and what we'll do, and how music can change us and move us to certain things. I'm a firm believer that like music can change the soul, music can change your attitude, and music can can really affect your life. And which is another inspiration that I have coming up is literally just music. But there's that element of it, and being able or being willing to change not who you are, but like some of your appearance maybe, for listening to this music and being able to listen to this music kind of speaks something to me. And the ability of bards and musicians now, or in your story that you want to write about, or whatever, like how you can use that love of music. I think I saw someone watching Elvis on the plane from Ireland back, and just like that craze for Elvis at the time, and like the Beatles and things like that, how the bards, musicians are able to use their music and their moves and how their talk, their swag to influence so many people around the world, and how you can use a bard to do something like that. It's kind of the first thing that comes to my mind. And then the second thing that comes to me is they don't mention the father of these 3 wolf children that got killed. So could you imagine, like, if it does have a portal to the other world, like this is now war. You just killed my kids. And like, that's what you're talking about. Your story is like, you can, there's always a retaliation, right? And that's kind of like how stories ebb and flow. Your protagonists do something, and then there's a retaliation. And they do something, there's a retaliation from the big bad or whatever. And so from his point of view, like his children just got killed. And so now he's going to come back with a vengeance, like any parent would, So it's a very interesting idea and concept. And I haven't read
cliffhanger.
Yeah, and cliffhanger. I haven't read through the book. Some of them, as I was reading through it, it does pick up on some of the stories, and it's like, well, this happened, and now this is the other end of the mythology. I haven't read that yet, but I'm curious to see if there is anything written here about the mythology of the father.
And there's so much depth in any art piece that we can just like dive in and find anything that relates to our writing, our art, anything like that. Like if you're inspired by something, it can cue off, 1,000 things. Mm-hmm. It's sort of limitless, as many as you're willing to look for in the same piece you can find. Mm-hmm. And this is evidence of that. So yeah, super cool. What was the first thing again? You said something at the end of your first point.
I was talking about like musicians and bards and how like they can, really influence people.
Oh, yeah. So my favorite band, this is not on my inspiration list, and it should have been. My favorite musician in all the world is from Oslo, and her name is Maria Minna, and she put out a CD today. Mm-hmm. I listened to it, and it was dope. And honestly, it made my day. And she hadn't put out a CD in a couple of years, so I was like just super hyped about that. And on it, she was talking about how like maybe being famous or making music in the first place was a mistake, and it shouldn't be her, it should be somebody else, and like stuff like that. Like she's going through the same struggles that all the rest of us are, even though she's international pop star, right?
Yeah.
And just a really cool album. It was like really introspective, which it always is for her. Shout out Maria Minna. So anyway, that's what I wanted to add. That's not on my list, but I still wanted to give a shout out because
nice.
That's my favorite music. Feel free to judge. All right, let me move on down. I'm gonna go from like super realistic backwards to cartoonish in terms of the artists I'm looking at.
Okay, I see.
So first, here in this negative space, you are seeing a cowboy sitting on a horse. So if you're not watching, you can watch us on Spotify or on YouTube, and you can see the art pieces that we're critiquing. And you can also check them out over on the Instagram page at CRTV THNKR. So this next one is Mark Majori, I believe is how you say his name. I'm not 100% on that, to be honest with you, but this is a beautiful piece. This I thought was a picture the first time I saw it. He paints a lot of clouds, sunsets, horses, cows, all kinds of like Western stuff, and there's an inherent like depth of field. Like you see the main character, and then you see off into the distance, and even further, and there's great big billowy clouds that are just amazing, and they're big paintings. They're big, but it's still so crisp with the detail. And this piece in particular, I thought it was a colorized photograph. It's one of my favorite paintings of his. And I wish I knew the title of it, because I was looking all through his website and his Instagram, and I could just keep finding this picture, but I couldn't find the title. If it's titled anything, I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
Because it's beautiful, and it should be. So anyway, I thought this was a really amazing piece, and I feel like everything that he posts, everything I've ever seen him do, is so. I mean, it's not just a Western painting. It's like this is the feeling of being out there. It's like he's just sort of resting on his horse while his compadre, his partner, is walking around looking for something. Who knows what? But he's just sort of resting there, Western and resting there, and it just feels like such a warm day, and you're out in the desert, and I don't know, I just really feel at home in these paintings. And the painter, Mark, he spent a lot of time on dude ranches, right, in Arizona and Nebraska and New Mexico, and so that's where he draws a lot of his inspiration. Is he's actually out there with people doing cowboying work, and there's just such a love in these paintings and such an attention to detail that I think it's unbelievable. And I feel like I'm both inspired by it, and I feel as though I will never live up to this guy. Like, he's so good. Anyway, yeah, that's my inspiration to continue, because I'm like, maybe one day I'll be as good as Mark. So that's why I feel when I look at this piece first on, what are you getting?
Man, so when I look at this, like, first I think I see the way it makes me feel initially is like, man, that dude must have had a hard day's work. He's got his arms crossed on top of the horse. Of course, looking down, like, you can see like it's dirt on the ground, so I can almost like hear the crunch. And I can feel the sand on my hands, or the dirt on my hands just flying around. Understandably, they're wearing long sleeve shirts, but you can see the homie in the back. His shirt, it looks dirty, so he's trailing in the back, so he's probably getting dust kicked up on his shirt, and kind of that feeling of like dust in your hands that, like, whenever you wash it, it's still going to be kind of gritty and grimy when you wash your hands. I'm looking at the back of the clouds, and I'm seeing, is that a storm rolling in? Is that kind of like a dust storm coming in? Is that the sun setting right here? It kind of looks like it might be the sun setting, but those clouds look a little bit low to the ground. So is it a storm that's coming? Are they trying to do something real quick here? This guy's got his rope out. So is he trying to grab like a cattle, or is he trying to grab something? How far out are they? Are they going to try and rush before and try and get home before, night comes? Cause you can see the shadows are already kind of long. What kind of, what is going to happen if they don't make it to where they need to go at night? Are they going to camp? What food do they have? They have horses that have packs on it, but I don't necessarily see anything on there, from my point of view right now. So those are kind of the things that are going through my mind. This dude looks sunburned and suntanned, so he's been out on the field quite a bit. The horses are probably tired. Now that I'm looking at the horses, I can smell the horse sweat. I can feel the horse is probably sweating, probably tired. If it's anything like Texas, it's, probably like anywhere between 90 to 100 degrees, out there, especially with like the dirt kind of reflecting up the sun. It's probably pretty hot. with the clothes they have on. It's really, so what I get from this is a lot of like what you said, like realistic and like feelings, descriptions, like sweaty, sweaty back, dirty hands.
And I feel like this place, this painting is huge. I mean, it's I want to say it's like 3 foot by 3 foot. It may be bigger than that. But if you zoom in on it, it's not like it's incredibly detailed. It's like it's an approximation of detail.
Yeah,
that is. I mean, it's profound. Honestly, it's so good, and it feels like it's like you said. It's hot, and it just all the emotions are there, and it's everything I love about like old westerns and stuff like that. It just feels like, sometimes we fantasize in life about what life would be like if it was simpler and we just had to like work hard until we could cook dinner, and then we'll camp out on our saddle and the horse nearby, and then we'll work our way back home. And it just feels so wholesome and so close to what we want as people. That's what I really love about this, is it just feels like it gets me. I want to be there. I want to be exactly where this camera is pointing, and then just be able to look around at the mountains and help them rustle some cattle. It's so peaceful. I seen a movie. I saw a movie that was called Collateral, right? And in the movie Collateral, he's got his vacation is like a postcard on the back of his visor. And so whenever he's on break and he doesn't have a client, in his taxi, he just lowers that thing, and it's like some beautiful Caribbean sort of destination. I forget the exact place. And he looks at it and he's like, I take vacation like 10 times a day, right?
Yeah. And
so this is that for me. It's like I can look at it all day, and just every time I look at it, I'm on vacation. It's like the greatest feeling in the world. So thank you, Mark, for your wonderful painting. And I will continue to check you out. It's at Mark Maggiori, Maggiori, on Instagram if you want to check out his work. Also, you can see it over on our Instagram, and I will tag him in it. So there's that.
Solid
work. Not bad for vamping about art. Let's get it. I'm flexing. If you can't see the camera, there's not much to flex, but there you go.
That was good. I really like that. I really like that painting.
What's number 2 on your list?
All right, so number
Mr.
2,
Michael.
Number 2, we're going away from the visual for the moment. What we're going to be going into next is I've been listening to music for our next D&D session, and this song, because it's the beginning, and I've already told everyone, like, this is the music that's going to be playing when we start the session, just to give you an expectation of what the session is. I've been listening to it over and over and over and over and over again, so that I can feel like I set the right vibe, the right feeling for the session. It's not a typical kind of D&D song. You're not going to find this type of music on like a
D&D playlist,
like a D&D playlist. It's D&D playlists tend to be like more fantasy like, or a little bit more like Witcher, like a little bit heavier beats, or the combat's gonna include some voices and things like that. So what my inspiration right now, it's called, let me make sure I say it right. All right, Master Boot Records is the band. And the video that I'm listening, or that I've been listening to, is Master Boot Record Internet Protocol. So it's an album, again, by Master Boot Records, that I can only describe as like synthwave meets metal. So again, not a traditional D&D or fantasy type thing of music, but I've been listening to it on repeat just to make sure I'm in the right headspace.
So make sure you pause our podcast right here.
It's about, just listen to the first 6 minutes, because it's actually a 36-minute video of the music, but you know how YouTube has like little titles and chapters and stuff. So it's just the first one. That's the one I've been listening to all of it. But
go to YouTube. Step 2.
Listen to the first 6 minutes of it, and then come back and see what headspace you're in, and we'll let you know what headspace we're in.
Nice. Perfect. Welcome back. Did you listen to the whole thing? Did you listen to the whole first 6 minutes, or did you listen to the whole video is what I'm trying to ask. Because that was awesome.
Yeah.
That was awesome. That's really high energy music and variations the whole way through, which is what makes any good music. Yeah, I mean, that was a thrill ride. When you first said synth wave and metal, I was like, this is gonna suck.
Dude, I thought that too. And then I stumbled upon it. I was like, dude, this is awesome. Because I've really been getting like a little bit into synthwave. I like metal, but like the combination of the two was really was a really fun,
beautiful
idea.
Honestly.
And I've been trying to come to finding like themes and songs for each of the I've been running like one shots for my players recently, just because of where we are in the game. The crew kind of got separated, and they're kind of having their own individual sessions. And so for each session I had a theme. Like for Henry's last session, it was more of like a Viking-esque theme. There was a lot more chanting music going on with it, a lot of like drum bassy Nordic songs for it. And for this one, like, we're changing the tone, we're completely changing it, and we're adding this synth wave, and we're going to add a lot of pressure to hopefully the entire situation. But this was your first time listening to, like, as a creative, were you able to, because I know music can affect the way that people think, were you able to like create anything in your mind, or like could it bring anything to your mind in the first listening of the song?
I would say, I mean, the first thing that sprung to mind was I think it's Super Quest Saga is what it's called. It's like a D&D playthrough. Anyway, that they did a very interesting space campaign. It's a podcast. Anyway, Super Quest Saga, check them out. But was the first thing that came to mind, and it's very like, I don't know, it's very like heavy sci-fi, and I just thought it was really cool. Like I said, I have, let's say, undiagnosed ADHD. I have a difficult time focusing on things, and I have a difficult time paying attention to music, especially if it's slower, or, it's like, it's very hard for me to calm down listening to music. I feel like I was focused on that the entire time, and that was all I was listening to, which is so rare for me. So I'm definitely going to check it out again. Master Boot Record once again. But I just felt like it was like listening to an orchestra, really, where you just sort of like sat there in the audience, and it's like, okay, I want to experience this for a little while. That's what, I don't know. It felt calming in a way. I wonder how many people, there's a question that you can shoot us the answer to over on socials is, did it calm you down, or did it excite you? So we know, over under what kind of people listen to the show.
Right. This music, I mean, it kind of calms me down because I've been listening to it enough, and like it gets me in the right headspace, but also like I'm trying to like let it get my brain space going. So like I'm usually bobbing my head to it and like really thinking, okay, like what are the players going to be seeing? And so I wrote down just a little bit. The premise for this right now is they're dropping, and I say dropping down, an ally has grabbed this person, and now Grace's story is going to start with her character and a couple other characters coming down, and they're pretty much seeing the top-down view of this city that's getting attacked. And we've mentioned this a couple times, that this is you feel like this is like end game level stuff. They're level 15, 16 right now. So it is kind of, we're getting up there in those levels. So they're dropping down, and they're seeing Krakens attack a couple of the mage towers. They're attacking the city here. There are mages flying through the city trying to defend it. There are other attacks happening. They can't tell where these attacks are at, because I don't want to spoil anything because we haven't played yet.
And one thing to know about Grace's character is that she is a dragonborn who had used the wish spell to get wings.
Yeah. So she has wings.
A lot of it is based around flight.
So they're flying down, and what I want this to be is like kind of not so much a combat where it's, hey, we're going to roll initiative right here, and then it's going to be your turn, and then it's going to be your turn. Like, I'm really trying to add something different here. So then it's like, as you're flying down, like, this is happening. What are you doing? This is going to be the reaction. Make a save. Okay. Like, the music, I'm hoping, will put some pressure on everyone to be like, okay, you need to at least know a little bit of your character, because we're going in hard, we're going in fast, and we have certain objectives that the NPC that you are with needs to hit very quickly. And so I'm hoping this will put pressure on everyone in a fun way, in an exciting way, and in a different way, as we're doing different mechanics. And then how I see it going down is, I'm going to make like a map of the city, and it's like, where are you going? And you're flying through the city, and things are happening through the city. Towers are falling. Like I said, mages are holding the towers up, and there are other attacks and stuff that are happening right now, but we'll hold that for the actual session. We'll talk about it afterwards.
Do another Friday session. Just catch everybody up on the campaign.
Yeah. And so for me, like, the song starts a little bit more synth, and not quite as metal. And right at about the 1 minute mark, it starts to pick up a little bit. So in my mind as a DM, I'm trying to like look and focus. Okay, within everything needs to be said for them to know what to do within the first minute of us playing. So in that first minute, decisions are already being made. And by, I think, 1 minute and 46, the first round of attacks should happen, whether it's to them or against them. We're going in hard. We're going in fast. And so things are going to start hitting the fan as quickly as possible, because this is a Thanos level event is happening right here. And then, describe like what they're seeing kind of as they're flying around. They're going to see other NPCs in the city. They're going to see people moving to the temples. There's attacks happening in other places of the city. And then what happens when chaos arises? Sometimes we see people try and take advantage of that, and people are going to be taking advantage of the city in chaos. And what are our players going to do? There's the big bads that are attacking the city, and then there's just bad people attacking the city as well from the inside. So, what's going to happen, and kind of all that music. As I listen to the entirety of that record and that album, I continue to like think, oh, okay, maybe at this moment something's going to happen. Maybe at this moment something will happen, and continue to put the pressure on them. And that was just from listening to this song over and over and over again.
It's almost like Cyberpunk, right? Where it's like the whole gist of that RPG is live fast and live hard, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole plan. And this song is that. Like, it's, you have to go quickly and you have to commit 100%.
Yeah.
And that's like, thunderstorm is like the first thing visually that came to mind. It's like just lightning, thunder, clouds. And I think that you're using that to drop in above a city and basically be falling and flying down to then join a wizard level fantasy sort of fight is crazy and also awesome. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think that's a really dope song. I'm also sort of thinking about my own future when I listen to it. Like, wow, I'm toast.
Yeah, I think the first thing you said, fast. The first thing you said when we started playing was like, we're so fucked.
100%. As soon as you hear the music, you're like, yeah, it's over. Okay, well, it was a good campaign while it lasted.
All your characters aren't there, so only one will die.
Yep. My character dies, it's cool.
Exactly.
It's not for me, right? So
So, I mean, it kind of an outside of the box inspiration. Not art, not a book that we've been talking about, just music and kind of different music. And I think that's the beauty of listening to different music, is sometimes it can spark different ideas. I know you gave us a prompt, or you tried to give me a prompt the other week, and I just, it was right before we left for Ireland. And then in Ireland I was like, oh, I'll have time to write stuff down, and we did not have time to write stuff down because we were pretty busy the entire time, but we did talk about it, and I got some ideas. The prompt was, you're hired to kill a dragon. Write a short story about that. Just hired to kill a dragon. And I can't remember what song I was listening to. Oh, I remember the song. You said you saw Wendigo on my stuff. So
Wendigo song?
The Wendigo song
by Nick Casso.
By Nick Casso. I was listening to that and just got so much inspiration on like how to craft this story. And it's typically, I was just curious on what the song was going to be and what it was going to sound like. And it's not exactly what I expected, but it put me in the right headspace, and it's completely different song. And it wouldn't, I wouldn't have thought to listen to that song to get me in the headspace to write a short story, but it definitely did. As I was driving, I was like, oh my gosh, I got so many good ideas to write down here. And so as soon as I stopped, I was like starting to type on my phone because I was like, I can't forget these ideas because these are solid. So yeah,
awesome.
that's my my second item of inspiration.
I can't wait to read that. It's gonna be dope. I gotta send you mine too.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, let's move on to my second item then. This is actually an artist I've talked to a couple of times. She's pretty well known on Instagram, but was nice enough to send me a message back. Anyway, Katerina Belikova at Ninja Joe NINJAJO _art. So Katerina does a digital art, and it usually depicts the desperation and sadness in modern digital life through these like really richly colored robots and post-apocalyptic sometimes landscapes, and sometimes like very natural landscapes like flowers and stuff just like prancing around, even though everything around them is sort of dead. It's just a really interesting juxtaposition, and the way they add texture is really beautiful, and it's really cool and really unique. Like I've seen a lot of people take on robot art, and some people have done really intricate stuff and really detailed stuff, but I've never really been, wow, I'm moved by that piece, you know, like, wow, I'm excited by that. And this piece specifically, just I feel like it sums up the feeling of being on social media so well. Anyway, there's often in Katerina's pieces, there's often cigarettes and coffee and like a solo character that's, even though it's a robot, it's somehow just like very expressive, and I think it's so cool. So this one, in case you're not watching, which you should be, there is a robot in a chair, presumably recharging after a day or before a day, staring out a window, having a cup of coffee, and is in a very contemplative pose. And the poster that it has taken the effort to light on the wall behind it says, "All you have is now," but the W is crossed out to where, and there is some writing on it that makes it say, "All you have is nothing." Which I think is just, like I said, it's very indicative of scrolling through social media. Is you spend all this time doom scrolling or whatever you want to call it, and what do you have at the end of it? Nothing. And you look around at your time, you look at yourself, and it's very sort of desperate and horrible, which might be a little bit heavy for some people. But anyway, I feel like Katerina really does a wonderful job of depicting the modern situation in her art. And she said that her English is not good enough to be on a podcast, but I did ask, just an FYI. Man. Yeah, so I'm going to stay after her because I really, 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 really love her art. Super cool. Yeah. So I'm gonna send her this, in fact.
Hey, there we go.
Pester her on social media, people. Tell her she should go on the Creative Thinker podcast. Anyway, so what do you feel when you see this piece, Michael?
I mean, so, man, the first thing it reminds me of is the Netflix series Love, Death, and Robots. And it's kind of like, it kind of tackles some of these like darker themes. And I really enjoy how creative that entire series is. Some episodes stand out a little bit more to me than others, but I really enjoyed like the robot focused ones because it's very like the future of tomorrow, I guess, kind of vibe. And it's interesting. Then when I see this, I didn't realize that the writing was on there, that it crossed out nothing. So I was like, all you have is now. I was like, that's very interesting for a robot to have that. I was like, but I guess you're right. Yeah, all you have is now. And then it's got a cup of, and we assume it's coffee because that's what we relate to. But what if it's like hot oil to like loosen up the joints or keep them smooth. And then I saw all you have is nothing. And I was like, ooh, that is dark. Is that the room that did that robot put up the decoration? Was that decoration already there before and now the robot is just living here? Was it someone else's place that said all you have is now this super positive person, and then the fucking apocalypse happens and now it is, graffiti art, all you have is nothing, and it's a message to people that, kind of how you see in like The Walking Dead, how there's a lot of graffiti art, like, the end is near or the end is here, and, where's God, and some of these things when, everything has hit the fan. And, that's kind of the vibe that it sends to me is things have gone bad. Things have gone real bad.
And he's just sat there overseeing everything. Like he's just looking out the window, watching it.
And it could even be like, there's, I can't remember.
All crumpled up.
There's some movies and shows where it's like, this robot is all on its own, and it's just, this is just part of like what it read that humans did back in the day. So what if it's just there standing out? It's like, I don't understand why they do it, but they did this. Or what if there's a picture like that somewhere else in the room of someone having coffee kind of out there staring outside, and what is outside is outside, a blooming city, kind of like you would imagine like Coruscant to be in Star Wars, where, things are flying around. There is human life and there are robots. Or is it, kind of that scene in the end of Game of Thrones when Daenerys kind of like looks out at the destruction that she caused to King's Landing, and it's just like ash and rubble and like robots kind of like going around, kind of like Terminator-esque as well. So those are kind of like the images, the what ifs, like what's going on here, how did it get to this point? The chair, obviously, now that you said it, it's got something on the back, so it is recharging here potentially. And like you said, whether it's in the morning or at night, who knows? What if it could potentially be a cup of tea, cup of coffee. I don't know, man. What if it's human sentience? What if this is the brain of someone and that's all that was left? I think I saw something, and I have no idea like what it's from, but I saw someone, and I want to say it's like RoboCop. It kind of has that vibe and feel where they reveal the body and they start taking like the armor pieces off, and the dude realizes like, I am nothing but like just a heart and a brain right now, and literally every other appendage of me is gone. Like I have nothing. I am nothing except for this.
RoboCop.
It is okay. So, and it's like that's kind of like a really, creepy, weird kind of space to be in, and it's a very like existential place to be in, like where all that person was there, and very horrifying, like body horrific for your body to just fall away from yourself. And what if that is someone who persevered and is like, I'm alive, but at what cost is this machine keeping my brain going, and all I am is electrical circuits moving through life, and now my body is robot. And this cup of coffee, I know it's supposed to be warm. I have sensors in my hand that says it's warm, but I can't enjoy it, because I don't have taste receptors. Like, or something dark and depressing like that. It's very, very post-apocalyptic or kind of vibe.
Yeah, I was thinking like the first time I saw it, I was like, it's almost like a coming to awareness moment for like the one Wall-E robot, you know what I mean? Whereas he's just looking out over everything, and it's like you were saying, rehashing what humanity was, and somewhere in there starts to understand that those are the things that make life worth living. And I just thought that was really cool. Like, instead of just recharging, he's going to recharge while holding the cup. And yeah, it doesn't do anything for him, but he's there watching the world.
Yeah.
And that feels better than not. I just thought that was a really impactful piece, and I'm glad you enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, very much so. Really, really enjoyed that.
So, Ninja Joe, come on the show.
Yeah. All righty. So, going into my last piece of inspiration, again, there was a lot of great pictures in Ireland that we took, and it was a really fun time that we had. We got to spend almost like a week and a half there, including travel days, definitely a week and a half. But in Ireland and exploring, it was about 9 days, and we got to drive for us on the wrong side of the road and in the wrong side of the car. And so it was a fun experience, and we got to see so many landscapes. But the one thing that was that really brought my creativity and really just had my brain racing was the picture that, we'll share it. I guess you said it's going to be like,
Yeah, I'll switch to the main camera and it'll be right in the middle here.
Right here. So that picture,
Wow.
it looks so great. So before I kind of describe and give any background on it, like what does this picture bring to you?
Well, I think for the first, at first it's just like, wow, it's a lot of rain. But when I look at it, it's like there is no rain.
Yeah, yeah.
It's as rainy a day as you can have without having any rain.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's, I don't know, the colors over there seem more intense, which makes me feel like it's further north, and it makes me feel like it's cold. And it also sort of, it's just a foreboding picture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I what we were talking about earlier was like, I've heard all these myths and things about magic, and we've seen all the shows of witches and Dracula, and like all the myths that we carry forward as human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime I watch those shows, I think, wow, that's kind of cheesy. Like, look at the place that they're in. It's so colorful. It's so like, here comes a storm cloud behind them. Like, how cheesy is that?
Yeah.
And then you showed me this picture earlier, and I was like, okay, that's where it came from.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, these people have definitely been creating pretty vigorously throughout history, because yeah, what a place.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that seems so colorful for just a storm rolling in. And I mean, it was the middle of the day. That looks like 9 p.m.
Yeah. So again, the background of that, the picture is, it was pretty early in the morning. I believe this was maybe like, we were supposed to be there. It was maybe like 6 in the morning. 6 in the morning. And so, and I told you before that, you could see so we were driving, from like kind of close to the coast of Ireland. We're driving about 2 hours away to the actual coast. We were going to take the Skellig Michael tour, and we were going to go to see Skellig Michael, which is an island. It feels like a couple miles off the coast, and it we have to get there pretty early. Of course, things didn't work out. We didn't go early. We ended up going later, but
Is that where they filmed Star Wars?
It is where they filmed where they see Luke when he's training the island that he's training Rey on. That happens at Skellig Michael. So we really wanted to see it, and it was really cool and really awesome. But driving there, we're driving down farmland. So that picture of the road is supposed to fit 2 cars somehow, some way. Sorry, I just found the mic. So somehow, some way, we're supposed to be fitting 2 cars there, which is kind of crazy and nerve-wracking for me, who is, I haven't really driven down roads like that on the opposite side of the road. But as we're driving through, we can see earlier, maybe about 30 minutes before that, there are like these 2 mountains, and you can see the fog kind of go all the way across the mountain. And the fog was like pitch black, but you could tell it was fog and not like a mountain that kind of went across. You could tell that it was fog, the shapes of it, and you could see that there was just a slightly lighter darkness above it, and it just looked so cool and interesting. The fog that we're looking at here was like pitch black, and it looked like, I think I told Henry, it looked like if you told me there was a veil of fog in front of Mordor, that's what I imagined. Like, I was like, we're going to the heart of hell right here, if it stayed that dark throughout the day. But it was just a really cool visual of like how fog how the darkness can change your perception on things. And then, continuing to drive, and it started to lighten up. It didn't rain at us at all. No rain. It was just cloudy. It was just cloudy, just foggy. And it was just a really cool, surreal experience to drive through the mountains and continue to see like this veil of clouds and fogs, and feeling like we're driving to this ominous place. And then, of course, we got there, and it was just a cloudy day at that point in the day. It brightened up later, but it was a really interesting, natural experience, and just really brought a lot of creativity to me. Like, how am I going to use fog and clouds now moving on. And that was kind of our running joke then for the rest of the week, because we ended up doing Crow Patrick at the end of the week, and it was super foggy. We could not see very much. The views were kind of meh at best. I showed Henry some of them, and they were not the best views, but we ended up getting some good views out of it. But the running joke was we continued to look at the clouds and be like, man, those clouds look awesome. Look at how they're covering the mountain. They're covering, you can't even see the top of the mountain. Look at, and dude, we went to a beach and literally like the clouds like rolled in on us. Like we could, like it happened fast. Like within the course of like maybe 30-45 minutes, like all the view that we could see out, we could see like a couple islands, the top of some of the mountains. We couldn't even see the mountains. We could barely see the rocks in the ocean that were out there. And so we're like, dude, how do you as a storyteller now that you've experienced fog, use it in a way that will make, in our case, D&D, but like make your audience feel like the horror of the unknown, the horror that's out there. I think there's a movie called like The Mist, right? Where there are like creatures in the mist that come out.
Pretty sure that's Stephen King.
Oh yeah. You're right. And so I was like, man, being, especially on top of Crow Patrick, like there were times where it was like, if I look to the right and to the left, I could only see maybe like 100 feet away from where we were at in all directions, because like we're in the middle of a cloud. We're in the midst of the fog. And so how can you use that in your storytelling? How can I now use this as a visual in D&D to where it's like your visibility is low. I got dark vision. You just can't see through the cloud. Like it's mist and darkness. Like you just cannot see through it. It's not magical. You just can't see through it. And then like what's on the outskirts? What are you hearing out there? It's kind of where my mind and like my creativity process went.
I feel like a lot of times in the modern world, we don't think about how much weather affects us because it's just too easy. We're buried in our phone. We're indoors, right?
Yeah.
But or listening to a wonderful podcast on creativity. Anyway, so we were in Alaska and we were fishing. And the tide came in, and where we were at in Southwest Alaska, the tide changes about 18 feet per tide. And in the time it took me to just help pull in a net, and I turned around, the water was already up to my back tire on my truck.
Jeez.
And I had parked it vertically 18 feet is a lot of room on a beach. So it was probably a good 20 yards away from where the water was when I parked it.
Yeah.
And then I just like reeled in the net, turned back around, and it was to my back tire. I was like, hey guys, we need to move the car,
Yeah.
And another time that same like row of season, that same line of season, we had a real foggy day to where it was like, I mean, I was late to work by like 45 minutes. It's a 15-minute drive. I was late by like 45 minutes because you could see in the fog maybe 5 feet in front of you.
Yeah.
I mean, it was nothing. It's like if I was going over 10 miles an hour, I might have run into somebody.
I think that's really interesting because you're right. In the city, you don't see it as much. Even in like, where we live isn't like in the city, but it's pretty city, right, where we're at. When before Kyle had anything, that fog used to be thick. Like we would be in the same situation where you can only see like 5 or 10 feet out. And, it's interesting. I haven't really thought about it much, but it's a cool environmental thing that you can add to your world.
Yeah. And definitely one that emotionally to the core affects your audience, with minimal effort. If you get this good moody setting that's got a whole lot of fog and stuff, you know what I mean? Like you can set up a scene and make people feel really intense about it super easy using weather. And I think that's super cool. So thank you for sharing that. That's two unique ones. I stayed with art for this whole deal. I'm moving more towards cartoony style as we go. But thanks for bringing some changes so that we don't just show pictures the whole time. So my last inspiration for this episode is Olivier Menetou, and I probably butchered that name. He is French. His name is @moon_mxtr, so like moon mixture, I guess, on Instagram. Anyway, so he is a French illustrator who draws mainly like female characters with really fun line work and lots of influence from like the East Asia Super East Europe, maybe the Middle East, I don't know, whatever you count, like India East, like Hindi and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of really cool textiles and art styles that he's added. It's sort of like Asian culture in a nutshell. And there's always like a fun nature element to his work, and just like a fun little nugget always in his pieces. So it's like, you know, in this one, I think she's got a necklace with a smiley face on it, like a little like emoji face, or a pendant or something. The middle lady, and then there's like some upside down bugs on this big like bowl thing that she's carrying. Like, there's all kinds of like, he always puts cool little nuggets. If you zoom in, you can find something interesting else to look at, which I think is super fun. And especially since it's a more cartoon style than the other two, it's like it adds interest and makes it feel more complex. And that's also true of his line work, which like the gal on the right there with the orange dress, it's like he went crazy on the line work. It's like there's all kinds of designs in there and stuff, and you're like, whoa. At first blush, looking at this piece, you wouldn't maybe necessarily notice that. You're just like, okay, there's 3 women standing there, cool. But once you start looking closer, there's more and more detail and more interest, and that's something that people who do a cartoon style usually leave out. Anyway, so I really enjoy his stuff. It's very, it's just very different, and it's not even like, you know, there's not a lot of people doing that kind of style. There's almost nobody outside of like anime, and even in anime, it's like big eyes and I don't know. It's like anime. I always felt like is a little more sexualized, and so he
can be,
and so he does not do that. And it's just like big colors. I mean, it is a little bit. I got
there's some cleavage right dead center.
I see what you're saying. But anyway, so it's a lot less than most people that do anime, and it's really colorful, and it's very. I always feel like it's very peaceful and natural. His artwork. So, what strikes you first when you see it?
Well, what strikes me first is like
cleavage. No,
it did not strike me first. It was like how do I use this in a camping setting, right? That's always my mind. Storytelling, D&D, like where do I put these people in a story? And immediately I'm like, okay, the sisters, I'm assuming they're family, right? I'm going to assume they're sisters. I'm assuming they're family. The reason I assume they're sisters is because of the hair color on the right and the left seems to be the same, but the one in the middle could potentially be a sister, but I assume the other two are maybe a little bit closer in age. The face structure looks like they're similar, but the one on the left seems to be a little bit younger than the one on the right, and then maybe the one in the middle is the oldest sister. Maybe she's the one who's like royalty, is what my mind is going to, right? Maybe like the stuff that's on her head is, you know, the crown of wherever they're at, and they have like these tiaras, is that what the right term?
Crown.
Yeah, the crown tiaras, and it's got, you know, some nature to it. So like where they probably, the area that they're in probably has a high opinion and high treatment of nature. There's this scarab that's in the middle. So what is the scarab gonna be, and how does it represent them? And actually, I think that thing in the middle is hanging from her hair. Look, you see how the flowers go down, and then there's a loop down at the bottom. So
it totally is. Yeah.
So whatever, her hands are still available to her, and she's holding this thing, which is why you can see like the neck muscles that right there, right? So you can see her neck muscles kind of straining to hold this thing.
I hadn't even noticed that.
And so, you know, what's happening? Her eyes are clearly covered, but what does that mean? Is her eye color different than her sister's? What mystery is there for her eyes? You know, could she have 4 eyes? Literally, like, you know, like what is the thing that's covering her face here, where you can only see mouth down? Is that something that always happens? My first initial thought was like, how to use this as like a hag coven type thing in D&D, but now I want to like use this as like, these are like royals, and they're like cutthroat. They're politicians. They know what they need to do to keep their family in charge here. Anyone who like brings any type of threat to the family, they find a way to take them out. What's going on with the hands here? Why is their hands painted? There's a dot on the inside of the hand. There's a dot on the outside of the hand. Is that some type of ability? Is that just decoration? Is there a ceremony that's going on right here as they're moving forward? Which is what I would assume, because, their eyes are kind of looking off to the side. They're not looking straight ahead. So they're keeping, eyes on things. Do they both notice the same thing because both of their eyes are looking in one direction?
I took it as the hands, at least, as a continuation of this loop, this horn loop. Like the gal in the middle has it, and then there's two spikes on either end, and then it's like they have one hand with a red dot on it. It's like they put their hands on the ends. Maybe it's sharper than it looks. I don't know. That was my thought.
Oh yeah. So yeah, man, that's where my mind is going with it. Like I want to know the story of these three women here. Like I want to know what's happening here. What's their background? And of course I'm always like trying to stat them out. And as far as like a D&D class and we'd had the whole monster stat talk last week. I'm trying to like, okay, where would I give them the stats for this? Like, are they like high intelligence, high charisma, high dex, high strength, high wisdom? Like the one in the middle might be the highest wisdom, but the other two might be, more, well, I guess also wisdom for like the perception and looking out and things like that. So my mind's kind of racing in that way. And, yeah. I mean, it's a really beautiful picture. Like there's so much detail and like lore that you can bring out of these pictures. And, we talk about history and mythology and like, what is this scarab beetle loop thing around
horn or something?
Yeah. What is it?
How is that used as a weapon?
How is it used as a weapon? How is it used in the symbology of royalty or like nobility? Like where does it put you on a pedestal of status? Is that her hair, or does she have like, is that part of the crown that she has on, and she has just super short blonde hair or kind of orangish hair like her sisters do? What is the blue, or maybe the blue hair is actually her hair and she just got massive neck muscles.
Massive neck muscles. That's what we're going to call the episode. No.
Inspiration, massive neck muscles.
No, yeah, it's always fun getting to share our inspiration with each other, because it's like everybody who looks at a piece is going to find something different. And I'm sure you at home are yelling out to us what things you notice that we are not talking about. Yeah. That's what's really cool. That's also what's really cool about producing art, is that you never know what's going to grab people about what you're doing. And that's what makes it so worthwhile, is it's infinite in all of its ways. And we do so love art here on the podcast. So I hope you enjoyed getting to share in our inspiration. And if you know any of the artists, then let them know that we talked about them today. Yeah. And we sure do appreciate them, and they keep us going. So everybody who keeps your light and fire going is worth their weight in gold. So thank you so much for joining us on the Creative Thinker Podcast. You take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.